Okay, so we're doing two really fun, easy, raw vegan recipes. And the pea herb sunflower dip that we're doing, the recipe is actually on my website. So I gave you guys the link and I'll put it again in the, hey Colin, and I'll put the link again in the Facebook group along with the recipe that we're doing for the raw chocolate. So this dip is one of my favorite dips to make. It's really flavorful, sweet. The peas give it kind of a sweet flavor. It's very versatile. You can use it as a dressing, a spread, put it on crackers, use it together with a vegetable crudité. So many different things that you can do with this, and everyone loves this dip. I love anything green. I think it's because when I look at the color green, you associate it with something that's being healthy. So I love making green dips and green dressings, and this green dip is a really fun way to use different herbs and different green vegetables. So in this recipe, we're going to be using, the base is going to be just some thawed peas. So these have been frozen, and I just thawed them actually at room temperature for a couple hours. They thaw really, really quickly. And we know that peas technically, frozen peas technically aren't raw because they've been steamed, but I mean, I still use frozen vegetables, and so for me, it's fine. If you're 100% raw, you might have a problem with that, but I'm totally okay with it. And then we're gonna add some nice, beautiful, fresh herbs. So I have some fresh parsley and cilantro. You can use any fresh herbs you like for this recipe. Dill would go really nice as well. And then for the fat base in this recipe, I'm using sunflower seeds. So these are dry, and I've soaked and dehydrated them. And you can just use dry sunflower seeds. I soak and dehydrate them because we want to soak them to remove the phytic acid and neutralize the enzyme inhibitors. And it also gives a better texture after you've dehydrated them. You can also just use straight soaked sunflower seeds. They don't have to be dry, but I get all of my nuts and seeds in bulk. I will soak a bunch at once, and then I'll dehydrate them all and then store them in the freezer, so I just have them ready to use. So I don't have to remember to soak stuff. So if I want to make almond milk or any kind of nut milk, it's just they're ready to use. If I want to do a dip and dressing, I just grab them out of the freezer, and it's really easy. So that's one good tip for you guys, to just kind of prep and plan and prepare. And then we have some zucchini in this recipe as well. So this is going to basically act as our water base, but help give it some body and emulsify. Zucchini is a really good fat replacement as well in recipes because it gives that body. And you don't have to peel the zucchini. This is a green dip, so I'm just leaving the peel on. And then for the acidity, we're going to add in some lemon juice, because the lemon juice is going to help keep the color vibrant as well. And then we have some fresh ginger just to give it some zing. I always like putting surprises of flavors in my recipes. So someone's, having this green dip and they get that ginger taste. They're like, oh wow, like where did that come from? And then I'm going to add in some chickpea miso for some umami flavor, but you can add in any kind of miso that you have at home. Or if you don't have miso, you can totally omit it. And then we have some onion powder, which is going to help give it a little bit of sweetness and give it kind of a cooked taste. The peas will help sweeten it up as well. And then I have 1 clove of raw garlic. And if you don't eat onion or garlic, you can totally omit those. And that would be fine. And maybe just add in some pepper or something like that. And then we're just going to add in some extra salt just to help balance it out. And this recipe is really easy because all we're going to do is put everything in the blender and blend it. And then we're going to fold some extra fresh herbs in. So here I have chives and parsley. I had some chives left over from a recipe I did yesterday, so I thought it would be fun to use in this one. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just start blending all of the ingredients. I'm going to grate in some fresh ginger, and then we're going to fold in the fresh herbs. Now I'm just going to start by putting all of the really soft ingredients on the bottom. Just going to put that there and see if it stays. So I'm just going to put the soft ingredients on the bottom because it's going to help the blender get to all of the rougher ingredients like the sunflower seeds. And then we're going to put in the nice fresh herbs and the zucchini. And our lemon juice. Garlic. So fresh garlic has a really pungent taste, so it tastes almost kind of spicy. So if you don't like that taste, you can roast the garlic before you put it in here. It's totally your choice. I'm gonna put in the chickpea miso. I'm just gonna add a little bit of salt for now, and then I like to taste it and see if we need to add any more, because the chickpea miso has a lot of salt in it as well. So you need to remember that when you're adding in other ingredients that are salty, you just want to start with a little bit of salt. And then I'll put in the sunflower seeds now. So this makes a lot of dip. You can half batch this recipe, but I like to have a lot on hand. And then what you can do with the extra spread is you can put it on nori sheets and dehydrate them in the dehydrator, and you'll get like crackers. So that's really fun to do as well. So I'm just gonna grate some ginger in here, about 1 teaspoon worth. If you like more ginger, you can add more. And I haven't peeled this ginger, but I washed it really good. But this ginger had a really light peel on it, so I didn't really need to peel it. If it has a really tough peel on it, then like a really thick skin around, then I will peel it. And how are you guys all doing today? I guess it's Friday, isn't it? I never really know what day it is working from home. It just always seems like a work day to me. But yeah, happy Friday, I guess. And lots of people are going back to work. So a lot of people will be going back and getting back into the regular routine and schedule, which is nice. For me, it's just going to be the same. I'll just be here at home, working away. You're good, Colin? That's good. I know you're good. You're always good. Okay, so that's enough ginger. And then what I'm going to do, I have some extra water on hand because I'm going to start blending it. And if I need to add some water to help blend, then I will. But the lemon juice and the zucchini might be enough liquid for this recipe to blend, but we'll see. I didn't need to add any extra water. It blended just fine, and you can see that you will need a good blender for this. So a Blendtec or OmniBlend, Vitamix, any kind of high-speed blender to get it to blend properly. If you don't have a good blender, you can use your food processor. I mean, it's not going to get as smooth in your food processor. You'll have to process it for a while. So I'm just going to taste this and see if it's balanced and see if I need to add anything else. That is good. I love this dip. So whenever you're following a recipe, even if you're following an exact recipe, you still always want to taste it because ingredients everywhere are so different. People overmeasure, undermeasure. There's so many variables involved. So you always want to make sure you taste your recipes and see if you need to add anything in to balance it. I talk about flavor balancing a lot, but if it's too sweet, you can add some more salt. If it's fat, extra fat will decrease any flavor. Acidity will help with sweetness as well, and the fat, really cut that fat content or fat taste. So now, I'm actually just gonna stir in my fresh herbs in the blender like this instead of dirtying another bowl, because why not? Someone's laughing at me. What's so funny? What's so funny, Colin? Okay. Ooh, this is looking good, you guys. It smells amazing. Has that really vibrant green color. Add some more herbs. Now, the reason why I'm adding in more chopped herbs, like I know we have herbs in the dip itself blended. I just like to have that contrast, and you can see it gives you an idea of what's actually in the dip. So we have mixed that up. That looks good. So that's enough herbs, so you can see it's nice, really nice and thick. You can see the nice fresh herbs in there. So I'm just gonna grab a container. Just put this into the container. I'm not eating it right now. I'm gonna have this for, I guess, late lunch, early supper after the live, because we need to make our raw chocolate. It's a really nice thick spread or dip. So if you want to use this as a dressing, you would just add in some water and maybe a little bit of extra lemon juice and just mix it up, and then you have a nice salad dressing. So you just want to thin it out a bit if you're using it as a dressing. And this is very, very flavorful. So it'll be fine if you thin it out for a dressing, but this is really good on crackers, or like I said, with crudité, some cut up veggies. You can see the sunflower seeds give it a really nice creamy consistency. I'm gonna try to get, it's always hard to get all of this stuff out of the Vitamix. This is the only thing I don't like about it. Okay, that's good enough for now. I'll do the rest later. Going to clean that up. Okay, then I'm just going to garnish it with some of my fresh herbs just to make it look nice. Okay, so there is our beautiful pea herb dip, spread, dressing, whatever you want to use it for. I see a question there. Hey, Adriana. Oh, yes. So I always talk about this. Thank you for bringing that up, Adriana. I use fresh homemade lemon juice. Yeah, you're never going to get the same potency of flavor if you use store-bought. Please buy lemons and just get a small citrus press like this one here. Super cheap citrus press. You just cut your lemons in there. Really easy to make lemon juice. I also have like a little citrus juicer, so if I want to make a lot at once, then I will. But yes, use fresh lemon juice because it's always so much better. You're never going to get the same taste if you use store-bought. Okay, so raw chocolate. Who here has made raw chocolate before at home or has experience with raw chocolate? So raw chocolate, for those that know me, and a lot of you on here do know that I am obsessed with chocolate. Chocolate is what got me into making raw desserts. So what I'm doing here is I'm just melting down the butter and the paste, but we're going to talk about this. I'll go through this whole thing with you in a minute here when we get to the whole process. Yes, of course, you've made lots of raw chocolate, Yin. Yes, and you're so good at it. You and your chocolate and your desserts. Okay, so for those who know me, you know that I'm obsessed with chocolate. I eat chocolate almost every single day. And obviously in moderation. I won't eat like a whole chocolate cake, but I'll have just like a piece or some kind of piece of chocolate. It's just like part of my daily diet. And that's what got me into making raw desserts, because when I got into raw food, and I've always loved chocolate, and I realized that you can make your own healthy chocolate from scratch. You don't need to go buy it from the store. You know exactly what ingredients are in it. You know it's going to be healthy. It's going to be healthy for you, your family, whoever you're feeding it to. It's going to have great ingredients, and you can make it so much better. You can make it the flavor you want, give it any kind of texture. So when I got into that, I really dove into making raw chocolate, and I took a bunch of online courses. I learned how to make stone ground tempered raw chocolate, and I had started a raw chocolate farmers market business when I was living in Edmonton, Alberta. I did that for a couple of years, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about chocolate. I went to Bali and like toured the chocolate farms and really just dove into everything I could learn about chocolate. And yeah, so still to this day, I love making it because it's really easy. We're not going to be doing the professional kind where it's stone ground and tempered. That's a whole other process and a lot to learn and a lot to explain. So here we're just going to be making some basic untempered flavored raw chocolate bars, but that's really easy. The only difference between tempering and not tempering is tempered chocolate can be left out at room temperature without it melting. And it's also going to be snappier, shinier, just have that professional quality look. There's lots of instructions online you can find on how to temper chocolate. So if you want to temper your chocolate, you totally can. But the way that we're doing it, it's just going to be really simple. We're just going to make some nice, smooth, dark, raw chocolate, and we're going to set it in the freezer. And these will definitely have to be stored in the fridge or freezer because it's not tempered, especially if you live somewhere warm. Chocolate doesn't like anything above about 23 degrees Celsius or a lot of humidity. So when we moved here to Vancouver, the humidity is really high, so I haven't even tried making tempered chocolate. Oh no, that's not true. I've made tempered chocolate before, but I haven't made the stone ground tempered chocolate. In Edmonton, because it's really dry there, it was really easy to make it, and there's like no humidity, so it was great for making the stone ground tempered chocolate. But so today we're just going to do the really simple, easy one with just a few steps, and you're going to walk away and you're going to be like, wow, it's that easy. I'm going to go out and buy the ingredients I need and just start making it at home. Now chocolate, I'll just give you a little rundown on, I just have to stir this here, just one sec. I'll just give you a little bit of a background and education on chocolate itself. So there's two different kinds that you can buy. There's the unroasted cacao, which is called cacao. So that's the C-A-C-A-O. And a lot of people get confused about that. They think cacao and cocoa are the same thing, but they're not. So cacao just means that it's been unroasted. So the roasted kind is cocoa, which is the most popular kind that you see, you know, in the stores that most people bake with. Obviously, if you're going to use it for baking, you don't want to buy unroasted, because if you're heating it anyways, you might as well just get the roasted cocoa. But you'll notice a big difference in the cocoa powders as opposed to cacao powders, because the cacao powder is a lot lighter, it's actually sweeter in taste, almost less bitter than roasted cocoa, and I like the flavor a lot better. And then it also has a lot more nutrients, it's going to be healthier, and yeah, just better overall. And you can really see the difference, like the cocoa, the roasted cocoa is going to be really, really dark, and you can really smell that bitterness. So what I like to use for making my chocolate, I use cacao paste and cacao butter. Now, in the raw world, chocolate is a very gray area because technically, unless you're getting it from a very reputable source and you know exactly how it is grown and processed, there really is no such thing as raw chocolate, because during the fermentation and processing process, it actually goes well above temperatures of the allotted amount of 115 degrees Fahrenheit. So there's a lot of controversy around it in the raw world, but we still use it a lot because it's unroasted, it's still really healthy, has a lot of health benefits, and of course tastes good. Who doesn't love chocolate, right? So yeah, if you can source anything, any of your products called cacao, so it'll be CACAO, you know that it'll be unroasted. And please try to get organic and ethically sourced, fair trade. There's lots of suppliers where you can find them from. Okay, so there's different kinds of cacao. So who here knows that cacao is actually a fruit? Anyone know that cacao is actually a fruit? And because we're eating the seeds. So these are the seeds. This is what they look like after they've been fermented and dried. I don't know if you guys can see them properly there. These just have bloomed because they look funny. They've bloomed because I've had them for 3 years. A really long time. Actually, I got them in Bali. And so what happens is they will remove the seeds from the cacao pod, which is actually a fruit. And then they take the seeds, they dry them, ferment them, and then this is what they look like after they've been fermented and dried. So then they take this and they'll actually crunch it down into nibs, what we call nibs, cacao nibs, which again are really popular and you can find everywhere. And then so they'll crunch them down. So that's basically like what nibs look like. And they'll process that down and then start processing it into a paste, or it's actually called, in a lot of other places, it's called liqueur or mass, cacao liqueur, cacao paste. All three, it's the same thing. And then they'll process that to separate it to get the cacao powder and the cacao butter. So the paste still has the powder and the butter in there. So it has the actual, all of the health benefits and caffeine and everything, the bliss chemical from the cacao, plus the cacao butter, the fat content. And then they will, so it goes from the beans, cacao nibs, the paste, then to the cacao powder and cacao butter. And then that's what you get in the products that you buy. So here, I actually like to use cacao paste, and actually I'll just grab it for you and show you guys. I didn't have any out here. I buy everything in bulk in really large quantities, so I keep everything in these huge containers. So this is what paste looks like, or matte. It's also called cacao mass or cacao liqueur. And so I like to use paste mixed with butter because it's so much smoother. Because if you use powder, you have to make sure you sift it and most of the time blend it just to get out that graininess from the cacao powder. So this just produces a smoother result, and it's going to be less steps. So we're just going to melt down cacao paste and cacao butter, and you want to make sure that you use 2 bowls. So you can do this in a pot as well. If you have a little pot on the stove, put a glass or a stainless steel bowl on top with the water underneath. You want to make sure that if it's on the stove, that you don't want the water to touch the bowl. Otherwise, you're going to burn your chocolate. It's going to be unusable. You can't save chocolate once it's burned. It will have to be discarded. And so I don't want you guys to do that. I don't want you guys to accidentally waste ingredients. So don't burn your chocolate. Doing it this way, all I've done is I've put water from my kettle, boiling water, in this stainless steel bowl. And I have a bowl exactly the same size that I've put the butter and the paste in, and I just put it on top like this, and it will melt down. So sometimes it might go over the allotted raw temperature, but don't forget that this has been heated over that temperature at some point anyways. So I'm not too concerned about that. And this way you'll know that for sure you're not going to burn it, because the water from the kettle will never get as hot as the water from boiling on the stove. So you're just going to melt it down, and sometimes it takes, I had to do 2 batches of water, so sometimes it takes a little bit longer. And you're going to get this really nice, this is basically chocolate already here. You can see how smooth that is. This is basically chocolate without the sweetener and the flavorings. So you can eat it like this, but it's going to be really bitter and not taste that great. So we've just melted this down, so I'm going to remove it now from this hot water. And the reason why you want to use bowls that are exactly the same size is because you don't want to get water into the chocolate. This is another very important tip you want to remember, because if you get water into the chocolate, it's going to seize and become kind of like a fudge, which is great if you want to make a fudge or like a really thick chocolate sauce. You can add hot water, but in this case we're going to make some nice pretty flavored chocolate bars, so I want my chocolate to be thin and malleable so that I'm able to do that. So you don't want to get water in here. So what I'm going to do, now that this is melted down, this is pretty hot, I want to add in my sweetener and a little bit of salt. So I like to just add in sweetener to taste, and I'll put the recipe, you guys, for this up in the group after the live, because you want to make sure that you have a kitchen scale when you're measuring out butter and paste. So here I've used 100 grams of cacao butter and 200 grams of paste. Now you can always play with those ratios depending on how dark or light you like your chocolate. The more paste you use, the darker it's going to be, and obviously the more butter ratio you use, the more kind of milky it's going to be. So in this case, I've just doubled the amount of paste because I like a dark chocolate, and this makes it about like almost like a 73% dark chocolate. And then I'm going to add in some sweetener. So for this amount, it's usually about 1/4 cup, but I just like to do it to taste. So you can add as much or little sweetener as you want and make it as sweet or non-sweet. You can use any kind of liquid sweetener. So this is coconut nectar. So one really important note, the coconut nectar that I source here in Canada, it's actually really light and runny in color. Most of the coconut nectars that you buy are very dark and thick, and when you add it to the chocolate, it will actually make it seize. So don't use it if it's really dark and thick. You're going to want to use like a light agave or a maple syrup if you have it as a liquid sweetener. And make sure that your liquid sweetener is at room temperature and not cold, because once you start adding anything cold into the chocolate, it's going to start to set and seize and you won't be able to work with it. So this is going to be enough sweetener for me. And you can see that it's still nice and runny. It's getting a bit thicker because I've introduced now a liquid. And it's cooling down, which is good because I don't want to use it when it's super piping hot. And then we're going to have fun and we're going to make different flavors and use different textures. We're going to make chocolate bars. I thought chocolate bars would be fun to do. You can also do like almond butter cups. You can use it for covering truffles, like whatever you want to make with the chocolate, you can do that. So here I have these bar molds from, I just got them on Amazon. They're just these chocolate bar molds. And you just want to make sure that you've cleaned the inside of them so that they won't produce marks when you put your chocolate in here and set your chocolate. Otherwise you're going to see it on the bars. I've already done this, I'm just doing this again just quickly just to make sure. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to use these chocolate bar molds. So you don't want to use polycarbonate molds if you're not tempering the chocolate, otherwise you're going to have a really hard time getting it out. So this is not polycarbonate, these are like plastic, and I just got these off Amazon. And so I'm going to be able to pop the chocolate out really easily in these molds. So we're going to make 2 different flavors. And I have, oh, we got to add in our vanilla, you guys, because vanilla, you can't have chocolate without vanilla. The two are basically married. So I got to add in my vanilla, and I just use the medicine flower. Most of you guys know I use the medicine flower essences. They're really strong, CO2 extracted, really good flavor essences. And then I'm going to be using a raspberry that I'm going to be putting freeze-dried raspberries in with as well, and an almond flavor because I'm going to be putting in some almond brittle. So I'm going to make an almond brittle chocolate bar and a freeze-dried raspberry flavored chocolate bar. So 2 different flavors, so then we need 2 different bowls. So let's just split this up. And you don't have to flavor it, you can leave it just like this. But I'm going to flavor it because I like flavored chocolate. So I'm going to add in some raspberry essence. And just mix that in there. I'm not putting in the freeze-dried raspberries yet. I'm going to show you what to do with those. And then in the other flavor, I'm going to add the almond essence. And so you can use essential oils in here as well. Orange essential oil, peppermint essential oil. Go really nice. Make sure that they're food grade. And essential oils, you only need a few drops because they're a lot stronger than the essences. So we've mixed in our flavors. And now what we're going to do, so the first bar I'm making, I'm going to be using this candied almond brittle that I made in the dehydrator. This recipe is in the online raw desserts course, so all of you who are watching who are in the dessert course, this is the almond brittle from the almond spice cake. See, so again, this is so versatile, and you will have extra if you've made it already, and you can just make chocolate bars out of it, or you can use it as a coating for truffles as well. So I'm just going to put them into the bar molds on the bottom like this. Now you don't want to go too crazy because remember you still have to fit all your chocolate in here. But who here likes chocolate with texture? I am a texture person. My chocolate needs to have some texture. Okay, so this is the almond one. I have these chocolate funnels, you guys. You guys can get them on Amazon. They're the Wilton chocolate funnels. And they make it so much easier to do this, and you'll see why once I start here. They have a little lever on them to hold, to cover the hole so that it doesn't leak out. And then so I'm just going to start pouring it into the bar mold. You want to make sure that you don't overfill it because it's really easy to do. And now we're just going to pat it on whatever surface you have. We're doing this to remove the air bubbles because we have the almonds in here just to make sure it's even. And when you do this, you can see the air bubbles actually come to the top. Okay, so this is flattened out good, and you always want to get a hard surface. So in this case, I'm going to grab a cutting board and just put it on the cutting board. And then I'm going to pop it into the freezer, and you only need to pop it into the freezer for about 20 to 30 minutes. So now we're going to make our raspberry one. So I have some extra almond chocolate here I'll use for something else. Do you guys have any questions at all as we're moving along. So these are freeze-dried raspberries. These are from Trader Joe's. There's a bunch of different brands that you can get online. Here, I used to be able to just go across the border and go to the States and get them, but obviously the border's closed right now, so I can't do that. So I'm just crumbling up the freeze-dried raspberries into the bar mold. And again, you don't want to go too crazy with this. Who loves raspberry and chocolate? I'm obsessed with raspberry and chocolate, and mint and chocolate are my two favorite chocolate pairings. That is for sure. Okay, so as you can see, I've just put the freeze-dried raspberries into the bottom of the molds here. Adriana, yes, I buy them online. So the brand is called Medicine Flower. So are you based in the US? If you're based in the US, you can just Google Medicine Flower essences and they will come up for you. Yay, you love raspberries. That's good. Me too. Okay, so this is the raspberry chocolate here. I'm using a different funnel, right? Because this is a different flavor. Oh, you are? Okay. So Adriana, yeah, if you're based in the US, then Medicine Flowers in the States, they're in Portland. So you can get them online. I know they're having, they're really backed up right now with orders because of everything that's going on. So I'm not sure what is actually available right now, but yeah, totally check them out. They're really awesome flavor extracts. So I'm just going to do the exact same thing I did with the almond ones. So I put a lot of freeze-dried raspberries in this one. I'm going to do the same thing. And these ones are nice because you can really see that raspberry texture come through. I'm going to just add a bit more. Because I just want to fill up these gaps here. Chocolate can be messy, but it's actually really fun. This is nothing. If you were making stone ground chocolate and tempering it, your kitchen would be a disaster. So this is actually not that bad. Okay, so there we have our raspberry bars. So there's our lovely raspberry bars. So I'm going to do the same thing and get a cutting board. And pop them into the freezer. Yeah, just let me know. And thank you guys so much for joining me today on a Friday afternoon. And I hope you guys all have an awesome weekend and that it's nice where you are and you can get out and enjoy some sunshine. And I'm gonna make some lunch with that pea herb sunflower dip. And now I have some chocolate for dessert, which is even better. So I will talk to you guys later and see you guys soon. And thank you guys so much for joining.